Frustrations are building in Raleigh now after the Hurricanes had yet another very inconsistent performance last night against the Philadelphia Flyers. Find out what happened last night and what needs to change in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Thursday afternoon. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, last night, we got to talk about it. It was bad. It was bad. The Hurricanes lost 3-1 to the Philadelphia Flyers. That now puts them at 9-7-0 on the season. And yeah, it's rough, folks. It's rough. This is not the Hurricanes we've gotten used to over the years or over these past few years. This team has, I don't know what's going wrong with them right now, to be honest. We're going to dive into that. Last night it was very sloppy, very inconsistent, and very poor defensively. The Hurricanes, they've become known as a team that is very, very good defensively. Even if the offense isn't clicking the way it should, that the defense is still showing up when they need to, and heck, even putting up goals for them. And that has not been the case. And you look at their past few games, they had, that really rough showing against the Florida Panthers the other day. Then they come back, shut out the Lightning, and then now you get this. You're getting Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Night after night, you don't know what you're getting now, and it's getting very frustrating. They're not finishing their chances. Jack Drury especially. They mentioned it on the broadcast. He can't buy a goal, and it's getting frustrating. That's for sure. Obviously, I know, we all know bad games happen, regardless of the sport. Whether we're watching the Hurricanes, whether we're watching Kansas City Chiefs, Boston Red Sox, whoever, like, bad games are going to happen. Everyone in the NHL, no one's going to go 82-0. We know losses are going to happen. But when the team, has gone, from at the start of the season, Stanley Cup favorites to now, like, a team that's trying to find its footing. And yes, it's still early in the year. We're mid-November right now. So, things are still getting worked out, but we're getting to the point now, and some would say, we're already at the point where they should have stuff figured out. But like I said, it's like they're still trying to find their footing. And you look at last night, and I have the recap up here over on my other monitor. Right, to in the opening 2 minutes, Philly was already up 1-0, and that's one I wouldn't put that on Pyotr Kochetkov. It was just a breakdown in the neutral zone, which is yet another thing that this team, they gotta get this stuff under control, guys. And then Philly went up 1-0 pretty freaking early in the game. And on a positive note, they did have a nice pushback, following that goal for like the next 10-15 minutes or so. But then Philly's up 2-0 at the end of the first, and that second goal. Come on, Piotr. Like that was a goal that, the first one, I don't blame him or anything, but that second one, that's just a save you got to make. And obviously, I know, still a young kid, still getting used to North American style of game, and he's not ready to be that full-time NHLer yet. In my opinion, I still think needs a little bit more time. Be that number two goalie for a little bit, and which what I thought was going to be the case this season, but it's not. That's fine, whatever. But just the team all around, they're just not at the level that they're expected to be at. This isn't the team. This isn't the Hurricanes, 10 years ago where there's no expectations for them. It's just like, okay, whatever, we're just going to make the no fans joke. We're going to make the moving to Quebec joke. That's not the case anymore. This team has expectations. Like I said, they're a favorite to win the Stanley Cup at the start of the season. And they can still turn it around. Again, it's November 16th. There's still plenty of time for them to right the ship, get on the course they need to be on to go hoist another Stanley Cup and put another banner up in the rafters. There's still plenty of time to do that, but they have got to find their footing and get themselves where they need to be. And yeah, like I said, they're down 2-0, heading into the second. And then okay, you didn't really have anything going on in the second period. But then you get into the third period. Steph Nason on a positive, he gets, his first the Hurricanes' only goal of the game. I was about to say the first goal of the game, but it was the only goal of the game for the Hurricanes. And kudos to him. That was his 100th NHL point, and that's a milestone that a lot of guys don't get to hit. So kudos to him for getting that. We're proud of you. He's a guy that has earned his spot on the team. But then shortly into the third period, Philly's up 3-0. I want to say it was only like 20 some odd seconds that Philly was up 3-0. So the frustrations are building for the team and for the fans as well. I mean, don't blow the team up. Don't have a fire sale or anything. That doesn't need to happen. And the world's not crumbling, and all that. It is still mid-November. We're not in January, February, that kind of thing where the push to the playoffs is really starting to begin. We're not at that point yet. So on one side, I'm glad, hey, we're having these issues now in November, rather than right before the playoffs. I am glad we're having these issues now. We can get it figured out and go to where we need to go. But this is not a team right now that looks like they've won 3 straight division championships, that they just went to the conference final, where they've made the playoffs for 5 straight years. It isn't looking like this team is not looking like that right now. They're looking like a pretty middle of the road, inconsistent team, and they've got to get it on track, plain and simple. And again, very sloppy, very inconsistent, poor defensive game, not playing well in the neutral zone, not finishing their chances. And that's if they're getting chances all, because at times it looked like they're even struggling to do that. And I've said it many, many times before. I'll say it many, many times again. You are playing against NHL teams. You're playing against NHL level talent. Again, some teams are better than others. We all know that. But these are guys in the NHL. They're good at hockey. Whether or not their team's record says otherwise or not, you got to be at a certain level to be playing in the NHL. And you're playing against those guys. So anything can happen on any given night. But the Hurricanes, you look at their skill level, compared to other teams, and they should be beating them. And it's frustrating. It is, and it's getting hard to kind of find words for what's going on with the team, because this isn't something we were used to over the past few years. So again, frustrations are building in the locker room, And that was evident in post game last night when Brind'amour, Jordan Staal, and Andrei Svechnikov spoke to the media, and we'll dive into what they had to say right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, we've talked a lot about game time in the past, and we're here to talk about it again. You guys know and love game time. If you're new here, I'm going to tell you about it because game time, you shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets for your next big event. Game time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all these sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I've used Game Time in the past. A few months ago, me and a friend of mine, we went to AEW Collision in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we got great deals on our seats, and I loved how we were able to see where we were going to be sitting. We were sitting in the lower bowl, had a straight view of the ring and the ramp, and it was awesome. We were at a great spot. We had a great time that night as well. And Game Time, they also have amazing deals. So they have last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, and it's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. And again, you get views from all of the seats in the venue. So you can, if you're going to a new venue, you kind of want to see where you're going to be at. Game Time has you covered for that. So again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, getting back into last night, again, frustrations are building. Yeah, you go on social media, you're going to see, fans, ranting, about, this player, that player, all that stuff. You're going to see that. We've all seen it. We're all on social media last night, ranting about the game and all that stuff. But it's not just us that are frustrated right now. The Hurricanes themselves are frustrated. Like I said, I want to dive into what Brind'amour, Staal, and Svechnikov had to say. Brind'amour said, quote, "Our game is not consistent enough. It's hard enough to win, and we're making it harder on ourselves. We're trying to be too cute here or there. They blocked a ton of shots. Give them more credit. They played exactly how we said they would. We need to stick to our game plan more." And that is, that sums up. They're making it too hard on themselves. I was talking to a friend of mine at work, and he was saying that it feels like they play better when they're under pressure and when they're down, a few goals or whatever. That when they play with the lead, they take their foot off the gas, they get comfortable, and yeah, you don't necessarily need to run up the score or anything. And last night they didn't have a lead, but we've seen that in the past before where they get comfortable, they take their foot off the gas. And I've said many times before where they do try to be too cute, throw in that extra pass or do this move, do that move. Like just stick to the basics, man. They cannot. Bryn Moore said it best. They're making it too hard on themselves. Yeah. Like you said, it's hard enough to win. Like I said, you're playing against NHL teams night after night after night. It's hard to win games. No one's going to go 82-0, plain and simple. And so they have got to just bring it down to basics and stop trying to do extra stuff and stop making it harder on themselves, plain and simple. And Jordan Staal, kind of he had the big takeaway from press conference. He was asked on if the lack of consistency, given that so much of the team is returning from the group's previous success in recent years. He said, "Quote: The effort of the way we want to play is what's holding us back. The edge that you have in the NHL of no is the kind of know where the puck is going because that's the way we do things. It seems right now we're just not sure what's going to happen. It starts looking like that sloppy stuff in the neutral zone when pucks are bouncing around and guys are just twirling around. It's less it's a less direct game than the Hurricanes know and love. I'm sure the fans love to watch it, and tonight they really didn't look like they loved the game, and I don't blame them. Not much more I can add to that, to be honest. And he did end up saying as well. I don't have the quote up over here, but he said it's getting frustrating as well. And my lord, like we just can't keep doing this, and because it is frustrating. Like you said, the stuff there in the neutral zone. Mentioned that earlier, how that breakdown led to a goal, and can't keep doing that. And it's they are holding themselves back. He kind of building off of what Brind'amour said. They're making it harder on themselves, and they're holding themselves back by what they're doing out there on the ice. They can't keep doing that, and they need to. I keep saying it. They need to get back to basics. Normally, it's kind of been, a thing the past few years. I rant about the power play and how bad that is. I'm not ranting about the defensive game night after night. I'm ranting about the power play, but that's not the case anymore. Given power play didn't show up either, but you look at the game the Hurricanes played last night. Yeah, it's really freaking frustrating, and I think it further on what Stahl said. Quote, "It just doesn't look like we've completely bought into how we want to do things. When that's the case, it's going to look like that. It's going to be a 500 club that wins some games, loses some games, and it's just humming. It's starting to get frustrating." That's the quote I was looking for. Yeah, it is getting frustrating. They are playing like a 500 team, a middle of the road team. That's what they're playing right now. And we're used to them being towards the top of the standings in the NHL, in the Eastern Conference, in the Metro. That's what we're used to now. And we're getting and with Jordan Stahl, yeah, I really listen to what he has to say there because he's been here through it all. Been here 11 years. He was here through about the majority of the dark days. Yeah, I know Slavin, he played, during it. Aho played during it, but like Stahl, I think he may have missed like 1 or 2 years of it. Like he knows the dark days of how bad this team was, and I'm sure it's extra frustrating for him to have, been through all of that, all kind of got to get it in the camera, all the way down here, and then they start going up and up and up and up, like live being good, and now they're going down again. Again, it is early in the season. I'm glad they're having these problems now as opposed to when they're pushing for the playoffs. But yeah, you said it best. It's starting to get frustrating, and the fact that they're just saying this to the media that's a lot because you know how hockey is. Yeah, a lot of guys are tight-lipped about stuff and whatnot, and when your captain's going out and saying stuff like that, that you're like a 500 club, and it's getting frustrating, and that folks aren't buying in. It's getting really frustrating when your captain is saying that. So, I think, they really just gotta get back to basics, plain and simple. But then, going on to what Fetch said, he was asked, about sharing what he thinks, is one of the things that needs to change. He said, quote, "We've got to start making plays. We've got to make smarter plays in the offensive zone. We've got to put the puck on net. We've got to get rid of some of those little passes and try to score goals." How many times have I said that? How many times have I said that? I've said that so many times of get rid of the little passes and you know, stop making these extra passes that you don't need to make. Plain and simple. I've said that so many times, and you know, still doing it. You especially saying it. Look at what Jordan Saul is saying. Like it's very, very frustrating for what they're doing right now because if this was a team that was typically at the bottom, whatever, of course it would be frustrating. Of course it'd be frustrating. We all know that losses are never fun, but when you've become accustomed to being an annual contender, and then now you're dealing with something like this, yeah, it makes it that more frustrating because the team is better than this, and this is what's going out there. But as far as what needs to change, that's a big question. That's one that a lot of folks are talking about. Again, like I said earlier, let's not have a fire sale or anything like that. But we're gonna dive into what I think needs to change for their next game right after this quick break, folks. So, folks, score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Uh, and football season's underway. We're all enjoying it. And then, of course, you got NBA season now, you got NHL season, you got college football going on, a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. So, right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Now, what needs to change for the Hurricanes right now? I honestly think they just need to get back to basics. I've been saying it a lot this episode. And, when it comes to practice, they need to focus on their defense. And because it has been a shell of its former self, it's rough to watch. Because, again, like I said a little bit ago, they're better than this. And you look at the standard they've set over the past 5 years, being a top defensive team in the league. So for them to be trotting this out on the ice, that's frustrating. And they need to focus on that. I've said a lot in the past, like, oh, again, focus on your power play. And in practice and whatnot, and improve that. But right now, you they need to work on the basics. And I think that a big thing defensively is they, for the love of God, do not pair Dmitry Orlov and Tony DeAngelo together anymore. That pairing is absolutely abysmal. It was abysmal the first time we saw it, and it was abysmal last night. And that pairing has shown that they're not making improvement. I've s- you know there there is no improvement with that pairing. Every time it is put together, yeah, if they win, yeah, okay, yeah, folks aren't necessarily talking about as much. Okay, that kind of happens with wins. Some of the negatives, get looked over, but every time that pairing is together, it's bad. It is really bad. And I've said, many times, D'Angelo is a defensive liability. They should not have brought him back. And now they did, and look at what you're getting. You got a traffic cone out there. Look at how many the first goal, especially that breakdown in neutral zone. Who was there? Tony D'Angelo. And it he's been the subject of some trade rumors, especially kind of when it was looking like Pesci, was out and now he's back. So I really think they need to move on from him. Like he's a liability. He's bringing them down. He's bringing Orlov down. He's a guy you went out and spent big bucks on, and you're getting that kind of play out of him. Like no, 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 no. They need to move on from D'Angelo. I think that's a starting point. I could see maybe some other guys getting moved. But I think D'Angelo honestly is the first guy that needs to get moved. Like it's not worth putting him out there. It's not. It should be Jalen Chatfield out there on the ice. It should be. He's much better defensively, and he's not a massive liability out there. Chatfield earned his spot on this team last year. Uh, and now he's having to split ice time with a traffic cone. No, they need to trade D'Angelo fast. Uh, and I'm sure right now it's kind of hard to trade him because he is playing so poorly, and folks don't want that liability on their team, much less the off ice stuff that comes with him. So I'm sure it is hard to find a trade partner for D'Angelo right now. He's not going to fetch a lot, and frankly, I don't care what they get for him. I expect a late round pick. But at this point, just trade him for everyone's favorite return in a trade, future considerations. Just get him off your team because he is bringing them down. He needs to go, plain and simple. Yeah, I'm sure some folks aren't going to agree with that, but it is what it is. I think that he needs to go because anytime he's out, he's not with his first stint here. He was he set a record for points by defenseman in a season. Like he had that offensive upside, that folks, where you guess like front office and whatnot, they could live, with the poor defensive play. But right now, like it's not good. It's not. And he's on a third pairing as well, rather than first pairing with Jacob Slavin. I said that uh, whenever they brought him back, that he's not going to be with Jacob Slavin. Jacob Slavin isn't going to be covering that stuff up, like he did with D'Angelo's first stint here. That wasn't going to be the case this season. And it's not going to be for however much longer he's here. He's going to be playing on the third pairing. Brent Burns and Jacob Slavin are not getting split up. Brady Shea and Brett Pesci are not getting split up. That is D'Angelo seeing his third pairing defenseman yet, and that's it for the Hurricanes right now. That's it. That's as that's as high as he's going to get in the lineup. And it it's not worth it. It's not. You need to put Chatfield back out there. Or if you're not going to trade him, just keep Chatfield out there. You kept DeHaan in the press box so much last year. What's stopping you from doing that with D'Angelo? All right. What's stopping you from doing that? All right. You know, they've got to improve their defensive game. I think Orlov, again, he hasn't been great either. And I'm sure that is incredibly frustrating for the team considering how much they're paying him. So I think if they can put him with a good defensive pair, partner, then maybe things can improve for him and he can get used to being in the Hurricanes. I said at the start of the year that I expect some growing pains, for it to take a little bit. We saw that with Brent Burns last year. It took him a little bit to get going and get used to being on the Hurricanes, but once he got going, he got really stinking good for the Hurricanes. He broke that record that D'Angelo set the year prior. So you look at all that. I really think that is the first step they need to take. Take D'Angelo out of the lineup. Just put Chatfield there. If someone's hurt and you still have D'Angelo, okay, then you can play him, whatever. But just Chatfield needs to be your normal guy there, not D'Angelo. Don't have a revolving door either, because that's not going to help Dmitry Orlov either, because he can't build that consistent partnership with Chatfield. Uh, you because he's always having to play with someone different. He's always having to play with Chatfield or D'Angelo. Just have him play with the one. We saw, what it did for Brent Burns, constantly playing with Jacob Slavin. They built that chemistry. You see how Brett Pesce and Brady Shea are together. They know each other really well. And that is what Orlov needs. He needs that consistent defensive partner, and that needs to be Jalen Chatfield. Chatfield earned his spot on the team, and D'Angelo's coming in, having a split ice time, which was a move that didn't need to be made anyway. The one thing I saw on social media is, you know, how they had all these contingency plans, but now what a lot of them aren't panning out. And like you had like all these plans, make your team better and whatnot. It fell through on Tarasenko, and you know that was the other thing that a lot of people were saying in the offseason, that they needed to go out, get a goal scorer, and frankly they probably still do. Come trade deadline time, but you know this isn't what we expected. We didn't expect our defensemen to be in shambles, or our defense to be in shambles. So I think moving on from D'Angelo, again, get what you can get. I don't care. Late round pick, sure, whatever. If he's part of a package deal for someone else, okay, fine, whatever. Or if you just get future considerations, fine, whatever. He needs to go. Like he's a liability, and you're only as strong as your weakest link. And that's what we're seeing right now. And again, I think come practice time, they need to get back to basics. They really need to work on their defense in practice. And again, give Orlov that consistent partner. I think we can see some improvement from him. And then neutral zone play as well, I think, is one that they need to really work on. And then, of course, as Brind'amour said, consistency. That's an important one. Just being consistent, because we can't be having Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde night after night. Can't be having it. You go from, again, that real poor performance there against the Panthers, shutting out the Lightning, now to having arguably the worst game of the Brind'amour era last night against the Flyers. Or at least one of the worst games of the Brind'amour era. So it's going to be interesting, to see where they go from here. And roster moves that get made. And heck, even if they aren't able to trade D'Angelo, this is something I just thought about. Put him on waivers. Send him down. You did it with Coughlin. Do it with D'Angelo. It's not like he's making $7.5 million a year. Send him down. If you can't trade him, send him down. Plain and simple. Because you don't want to send Chatfield down. He's the much better defenseman. So that's what I think needs to change right now. They need to move on from D'Angelo. They really need to get back to basics in practice, and then go from there. Then you can go back to the little fine tuning things that need to get worked on. But right now, they just need to work on the basics, plain and simple. And I think if they can do that, I think they will get on the right track. I do, because I've said it several times this episode. It's early in the year. It's mid-November. There's plenty of time for them to get back on track. But I also don't want them to dig themselves into too much of a hole either, come when it's time for making that push to the playoffs, so they're having to dig themselves out of that hole, because that is really something you don't want to do. So I think they will get on the right track. I do. And I think, we're seeing those frustrations, start to, show. And, hopefully they can, use those frustrations, put it out there on the ice, and start racking up some more wins. So if they can do that, I think they'll be all right. But, I think that they really need to get the guys to buy in. guy again, we don't know who it is. That's just a quote from Jordan Staal, saying guys aren't buying in. Whoever it is, uh, they need to get on the same page. The team has got to get on the same page. And if they can do that, I think they'll be all right. But they got some work to do. They got a lot of work to do. I don't expect this to be a super quick turnaround. I don't expect them to go on, a 10-game winning streak or anything like that starting in their next game. I don't expect that in the slightest. I expect there to be some more frustrating games. But with that, I do want to see some improvement game after game, even if it's just some minor stuff. I do want to start to see some improvement and consistent improvement at that. I don't want to see, going back to this little 3-game stretch, you have, poor performance down in Sunrise, then you shut out Lightning in Tampa, and then you get yet another poor performance when you're back home in Raleigh. I don't want something like that. I don't want going peaks and valleys. I don't want that. I just kind of want that steady increase of their consistency and getting there. I know there's going to be dips and whatnot. Again, no one's going to go 82-0. There's going to be losses. But I think, they need to get on the same page, get back to basics, make some roster moves. They do that, I think they'll be all right. But it ain't going to happen overnight, folks. That's the thing. These changes that need to be made are not going to happen overnight. But they do that, I think they'll be all right. So, folks, let me know what you think needs to change with the Hurricanes. Let me know your frustrations that you're having with the team right now. So, make sure you're following the show along on socials at LO_Hurricanes and myself at Jared Ellis _96. And go subscribe over on YouTube as well. And I will talk to you guys in the next episode. And as always, let's go Canes.